Welcome back everyone to another video of Thieves Logs. Inside of today's video, guys, we're going over the rough and tough knucklehead himself, Ryuji Sakamoto. And this is one of the few characters that not only is a launch character, but is absurdly good as a single target. And as time does go on and we slowly get the Annie units, he will get even better. So we're going to try and break this down to the best of our at least capabilities here, whether we're going over his skills, the team sections, and then the rotations to help you fix your DPS overall. But without further ado, let's get straight into it. Immediately getting started here, Ryuji is one of those few characters of a huge concept known as glass cannons. Now he has this absolutely down in his entire kit and he's pretty simplistic to use. And no matter how you think about it, he's going to deal a ton of damage and you're usually just going to spam a lot of his skill 3 and to get everything that you do want. But the problem is you do need him to be very low on his HP. Reason being is because mainly the thing that is going to allow him to deal this amount of damage, or the crazy amount of damage that we'll end up seeing later down the line, is by using a ton of his HP, making sure he's low. He ends up gaining something called a rebound from his passive, and then the man himself absolutely does the most destructive hit you can ever see. This character, even on TW, if he does not even have many cards, especially once we get the newer units, he can just absolutely blow things out of the water that shouldn't just be doing this itself. So going ahead and taking a look at him here, one of the few things that you're going to pay attention to is just going to be his thief tactics and obviously his skill 3. But going over all these skills, because I'm going to try and at least go over each one just in case you want to use them, though even though Skull is going to mainly use his skill 3, you do have his first skill. Now his first skill, which is called Pirate Tactics here, he ends up dealing a little bit of damage to one foe here. It does do about 3 hits, and if he doesn't have rebound, he spends 20% of his max HP and increases his damage by 30% while increasing his critical rate by 30%. Now, this may sound pretty darn good, but seeing how Ryuji himself is really just trying to set up majority of the time and how long it takes God Hand's burst to actually deal damage, you really won't be using this skill too often. It also doesn't take as much HP if you really want it to do, so you're not going to be able to get down to a very low point very quickly. Then of course we have his second skill being Thunderbolt. Now Thunderbolt is the electric skill on him. It is a AoE based skill. Seeing that this character is a single targeter, you're usually not going to be using an AoE based skill here, but it attacks all foes doing about 67.1%. Right now mine is low, of course, so it has 44.0% here with a 29.3% chance to shock. Now that's going to be at the max amount, and if he does have a rebound, it increases the chance to shock, being around 58.6% shock amount here. Now currently, since his level 1 is only 38.4%, so obviously there are some things that are a little bit different here, but still, this isn't one that you're going to be using. He is a single targeter at the end of the day, so you're usually going to avoid it. Now the main things to focus on, as I said before, is going to be Thief Tactics and God's Hand Burst. Reason that these two are absolutely so important also comes down to the passives. So before we actually talk about them a little bit more, the passive being Adrenaline is whenever the target's remaining HP is higher than Ryuji's, he is able to increase his attack. Now Ryuji once again is a glass cannon character, so you're going to have his attack, or at least his HP, very low anyways, making sure that you'll have this attack bonus being able to deal the most damage with our skill 3 later down the line. Then we pair it with his other talent here, it also helps out even more. Whenever he does have the rebound and uses Pirate Tactics here, God's Hand or Thunderbolt, he ends up restoring a certain amount of HP equal to his attack. So on the off chance, we got to build up all his damage, right? We have to get him ultra low. Well, we have him low. He's been building up God's Hand, which does take a turn to build up. Once he uses this, he gets HP back. The man is back at a decent amount of health, which is very helpful. For a glass cannon, you don't want them to go down pretty easily, and Ryuji's one of those characters. You want to take down his HP, you want to have him pretty much defended, but you want to make sure he's still very low. But once he, of course, uses this move, the problem is getting back his HP. Since he does have that talent, not only is it allowing him to deal, of course, more damage with the Adrenaline one here, but it then is allowing him to get his HP back once he does use his big move, which is one of these 3. So going back to the huge move that you guys are going to want to pay attention for all of his rotations, seeing his rotation is very easy, is going to be God Hand's Burst. Pretty much you use skill 3, it charges you up for a little bit of an action here. You select the foe to attack, and then once it's fully charged by the next round, you deal a huge burst of damage, being at 322%. At level 10, it's at 41% of his attack, so it does a lot more damage. Now, on the off chance that you're going to have the rebound, which is the whole thing about his whole gimmick here, it even guarantees this move a crit. Yes, so it not only are going to deal some crazy damage, but if you get that crit off, obviously you're going to deal even more than that. So honestly, it's freaking crazy when you can actually deal this damage here. And if you do defeat the main target with this here, while in your changing gears, it will select something else. So like, let's say you're boosting, right? But you accidentally kill the mob that you were selecting. No worries, it doesn't stop this from being charged or anything like that. He just selects a different enemy, which is very good for you. It means that the move doesn't technically get interrupted at all unless you're just getting killed. But that's pretty much how this move does go ahead and work here. So when it does come down to it, you're not going to use any other skills. You're only going to be using your skill 3. And let's go ahead and talk about some of his teams and how he can function a little bit. Immediately coming over to the team section here, we're going to try to follow the same principle, right? Which is always having a good DPS being the Ryuji. We're usually always going to have our hands on maybe like a buffer or something of that nature and continue moving on from there. And I'm going to try to have the most optimized way of building Ryuji first, and then I'll have these substitutes afterwards. So when you're building Ryuji, you gotta first have our man Wonder and a good selection. The first thing you want to know is whenever you do have this dude, be sure to be using the Ex Machina or either be using the one that is technically Mesa's Dagger, mainly because the Mesa Dagger one is very helpful when it does come down to the physical side of things. It is allowing you to increase your attack by a decent bit, and it also makes it so the target has a more physical damage taken. But on the off chance that you're like me and you don't have that dagger, the Ex Machina works just perfectly fine. Because what you can do is you would put a physical related persona in the first slot, and by doing this here, you'll be able to get that amplification. So one of the main personas that you do want to use is probably going to be Jikokuten here, because it does bonus or at least beef up your attack a little bit more. I'll talk more about this at the end of the video, so just keep that in mind. And I'll have you set up like this. So instead of it being any other person here, you have Jikokuten in the front, obviously getting that lovely physical amount bonus in. So once we have this all out of the way, we want to take a look at his team. So we know we need a buffer, and one thing about Ryuji is he's very easy to have his dedicated buffer. Ryuji's always going to be here, and his dedicated one that cannot be swapped out whatsoever is going to be Leon. Now granted, people are like, but Blade, we do have characters such as Winvast. Why wouldn't I use Winvast over Leon? Her crit damage proccing abilities is a little bit better. Well, the reason for this is because Leon himself actually is able to amplify Ryuji's damage. The reason being is because Leon actually takes away a little bit of your HP and gives you shield. So he's not only being protected due to Leon being here, but Leon is now enabling him to get his passive off as well. Good part about Leon too is once that shield goes bye-bye, he is then able to get that HP back, allowing Ryuji to get out of that passive mode and pretty much get some of his HP back as well. This is going to help him out overall with his thieves tactics, or help him out overall with his passives, making him the stable buffer for Ryuji. And until Leon pretty much just gets outdone by anyone meant for Ryuji, then this is probably going to be your main character that you're going to use with him as a 4-star no matter what. Even 5-star versions, Leon's probably going to be your go-to guy. Now for the next one here, this is where things can get a little bit tricky. And you can do a couple things. You're able to at least pair Ryuji in a very weird way. You can either use him with maybe a debuffer, you can go ahead and use him with another buffer, or even a sustainer. The problem with this is it's kind of interesting, because if you use a sustainer, for example, Mirian, this does help out your pen, which is going to help you out in tandem to at least your attack damage overall. The only bad part about doing this is now you have a sustain, and if he goes above his passive amount, this isn't going to help you out too much. So having a sustainer isn't very useful, but this is still a character you can use. Now, if you wanted the best use out of this, in my at least opinion here, I feel like Cord should be one of the few characters that you should have on the side. Main reason is because then you're able to actually go ahead and proc off your lovely ultimates here and try and use that highlight that you can use in order to amplify the damage they can deal. Remember, Ryuji's thief tactics or his highlight then allows him to increase his damage of the next skill. So if you're able to block this off with Cord right on his damage round, you're getting yourself a lovely 58.6% damage increase on your next skill. Imagine the amount of damage you can end up getting off. So this is the team I would most likely use as his primary team. When it does come down to at least the Navi here, you have a few different ones that you can go with. If you just want a basic one for a 4-star, this will probably be the best that you can go for, seeing that Okeon obviously gives you a lot of attack stats that are pretty darn decent. You could very well use Rico if you want to give yourself a little bit of buffing while also having at least some defense downs on the enemy. The only downside about using Rico here is you got to make sure not to use skill 3 directly on him because it will heal him, which we do not want that to happen. Puppet isn't really worth it at all when it does come down to this because it's too much sustainability. Sure, you very well could use it for the extra shield. Let's say if you're not going to be able to heal whatsoever in this team, you can use it for the extra shield. But whenever you pair, of course, the shield that we got from him, the shield that we'll end up getting from her, and if you have Cord in the team, Cord does deal a little bit whenever you're doing a highlight, give you a little bit of HP back. So if you have so much shield, you'll never end up getting hit too much, meaning Cord is going to slowly heal you up a little bit more, which is something I'd rather not. If you wanted to do something else as a 5-star or at least as a Navi here, Futaba would probably be the best one because you're getting the debuff, of course, for the defense down, and then obviously you're getting crit rate, which is obviously going to help you out overall. But that's just for now. In the future, the team will change here. And I think what I'm going to do now for the video, though, we're going to use Okeon to at least show you exactly how the rotation does go. Now, the good part about this, doesn't matter who's there. The only thing I would say is you usually want to have Cord in the 3rd slot, but as long as you're going last with Ryuji, I think you're pretty much in a good little span here. So we're going to go ahead and get this all set up, and I'll go ahead and show you guys exactly what you want to do. But as I did say before, there are some substitutes for Cord. You can obviously use Marion if you want to. It does change some things around. We'll probably do this, at least try one team with Marion. We'll try one team with Cord. And then the last one that I'd probably advise for a lot of you guys here is probably trying with Soy. Reason being for Soy is because he's able to do a defense decrease as well as he has defense shred with his weapon. So honestly, those can probably be a good choice for you. But with that in mind, let's go ahead and get straight into it. Alright, so showing off the first team here, we have our speed turn up at the top left. Remember, you do want to usually have Cord in 3rd instead of 2nd, but 2nd still does work out. So we're going to go ahead and set this up. Our DPS is in the 4th slot, so obviously all we have to do is just set this on up the right way. And to really do this, I would tell you guys right now, using Ultimate Booster is probably going to be your better choice because Justice Barrier only has a 2 timer, right? So if we use it the first turn, by the time it comes down to the next turn here, he's going to have that HP on down low, which is not going to be good because then we're going to get our HP back and that's going to be a whole problem for us. So what I advise a lot of people to do, if you did want to go ahead and to get this in the right turn counter, is to use the skill 3 into the skill 2. This is usually going to be Leon's whole deal here because it allows Ryuji not only to get a buff on the first round, but also allows Ryuji to go ahead and have that lovely buff for the next round and go into Justice Barrier to go ahead and do this the right way. So we're going to go ahead and use our Ultimate Booster for the skill 3. This gives us our attack percentage, which is going to be absolutely amazing to have. And then we're going to go ahead and use our skill 2 with Cord. Now Cord is obviously, if you already have the A1, going to give you a crit rate bonus here alongside, of course, already used your skill 2. So if you do have the A1 on Cord, you could just very well use skill 1, which is going to help you out with getting more crits later down the line. But if you don't, you're like me right now, you will use skill 2 first. So using our skill 2 first, we go ahead and give him this lovely little buff that he needs, which is the attack percent buff, of course. Then on Wonder, you can do a couple things here. Depending if you feel like you need more attack percent, first turn you can go ahead and use Terrakaja, or either use Rebellion into Terrakaja. But if you're like me and you feel like you have a lot of attack percent, which I do feel like we have a lot on this team here, you would want to do something different. Instead of just staying on the same persona, I would advise you guys to go ahead and use Rebellion, and then once you go ahead and use your Rebellion, swap over to Dionysus and use Revolution. This allows you to exploit as much crit rate as possible here and get also that lovely crit damage that we get from Dionysus here. So it will lead him to be a 2-turner. Good part about this is you technically don't need to do a whole like 3-turn thing if you want to. If you really wanted to do maybe a 3-turner, what you would end up doing is probably like Rebellion on the first turn, swap the Revolution. You still have a turn of Rebellion left, so you swap back to the Jikokutin if you wanted to use Terakaja. Or if you wanted to go ahead and do this in a different way, you could try to place maybe a different buff or debuff on the enemy with a third persona, like having Tatrasa and maybe getting a marked or something would be helpful for setting up your next type of rotation. Though usually for me, I always stick with using Rebellion into Revolution. It's honestly up to you, and I just swap back and forth between those two personas, seeing it's more of a 2-turn type deal, meaning I can go ahead and get Terakaja off on the 3rd turn while still my buffs are up. But first things first, let's go ahead and use our Revolution, or at least our Rebellion, getting up our crit rate, which is going to help us out in the long run. Now, I shouldn't be able to get my rebound because, of course, I have a lot of HP percentages on this Ryuji, but when your HP does get low, we end up proccing that passive, which is called rebound, and that will allow us to really get the most out of this character. But going ahead and looking at it here, first turn, you get your highlight. What do you want to use? My first thing I would tell you guys to go ahead and do here is going to use Leon's highlight. Reason being is because it does restore HP, so you would rather do this on the first turn rather than the second turn, because if you end up doing it on the second turn, you're getting yourself too much HP. You don't really want that. So what we'll go ahead and do, since this lasts for 2 whole turns, I'm gonna pop off Leon's highlight first. Boom, lovely. He has his own bonus here, and it's gonna last for a good round. And then we're gonna charge up our God's Hand burst. Now remember, we want Ryuji to get hit a little bit here, so when we're taking these hits, that's perfectly fine. The only downside about this is, 1, I do have a lot of HP, so it is kind of hurting us a little bit. And 2, our cord does heal HP off our highlight just by a little bit. So that's kind of the downside of having cord in this team, but it can probably make up for it depending if you can get your Ryuji low enough on HP percentages. So since we do have our Navi, I'm going to go ahead and use my skill 3. This is obviously going to increase our party's damage, easy peasy. And then what we go ahead and do with our Leon, we use our skill 2. Skill 2 is then going to take his HP down, which is obviously going to be great for us. If we didn't have as many HP percentages, we would be even lower, proccing our rebound, allowing us to get our guaranteed crit. But you guys get the notion that's happening here. So on this turn, you can use Catchy Hook. Now, if it's up to me, seeing that we are trying to do this in a proper way, I would go ahead and use this on Ryuji, because when we do this on Ryuji, we can then increase the amount of damage that it's gonna do, and also increase our next skill's damage. Now, unfortunately, this boss doesn't tank, so, or these things don't tank, so obviously we're not gonna get that debuff on them to mainly make sure they're gonna take more damage from that, but we still have our increased damage. So what we would do now, we would go ahead and use our Revolution. Revolution is going to be lovely for us, allowing us to crit, and then it uses our charge. Boom, and you get a huge amount of damage. Now remember, my Ryuji's only level 60, and he has like absolutely wrong cards. I can even go show them back again on the screen here, but like his cards are absolutely terrible. They're not good by any means, and they have so less worth out of them. And he still hit that high, so Ryuji himself is a very good character to boot, and this is just one of the teams he can use. So now that we went over this team, let's go ahead and check out one of his second teams. Alright, so getting straight to it here, this is another team that you can end up using. This one doesn't really matter where Soy is at, as long as you're able to at least do a lot of defense shredding, you should be fine. For me personally here, you would do the same thing though. We're going to go ahead and just give our buffs around Ultimate Booster the first round, and on Soy, normally you would want to use his skill 3. But for this team, you wouldn't want to do this, because giving yourself too much HP is going to absolutely counteract you, which is going to be very, very bad. So let's go ahead and just use Smash Hit, and the reason that we do this is because it then allows us to decrease the foe's defense. So if we're really just going ahead and just dealing as much damage as possible, getting that defense decrease is absolutely going to be worth it for you, kind of making them like a makeshift debuffer. Now for the last one here, we can go ahead and do the same thing. We don't have a lot of things that are boosting our attack, so if we really wanted to, we very well could use Terakaja, but the only problem with doing this is if you do have Dionysus, it's going to be Terakaja and Revolution. Granted, here's the deal, this is where things can change. On the off chance your Dionysus is built here, you can use Terakaja on the first round, use Rebellion on the second round, and that will still be just good. Just you now won't have that Revolution bonus here. Does kind of suck a little bit, but hey, sometimes it takes a little bit of sacrifices, so I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world. But let's just say we're playing Dionysus correctly, right? We know that we have a revolution. We're gonna act like we've used rebellion on Dionysus later down the road. So let's just go ahead and use Terrakaja this round. Now, boom, we go ahead and use our Terrakaja first round. Technically, we're gonna swap to Dionysus and use our rebellion on the second round, giving us the utmost amount of buffs that we do need. With this in mind here, we'll go ahead and have our God's Hand charged here, making sure we hit the one with the defense decrease, and then the other one we can just take care of later down the line. Now, since our HP is looking pretty nice, we should be pretty good, but we don't have our 3 stacks in our Navi, so we'll go ahead and use our skill 1, which is great for us because we get an increased attack, making up for some of the attack that we're missing. Afterwards, we're going to go ahead and use our skill 2, taking down our HP a little bit more. Once again, if we had no HP stats, we would have our rebound mainly here, and that would be great for us. Now, if you are using Soy, this is where the lovely thing called his gun's going to come in handy. If you didn't know, his gun can very well take down defense and shred a decent bit. As you can see, he has something called Daunting Firepower, and by going ahead and doing this, you're able to make sure the enemy does have a little bit of a debuff. Now, you don't want to spam all of it away, but it still is nice to go ahead and do. Now, here's the downside. Remember, we wanted to get that buff off. Since we have Leon in the team here, he's going to heal our Ryuji. So it's kind of the bad part about not having Cord here, is you get your highlight a little bit later. Meaning, since you're getting this a little later, instead of having 2 highlights that you're going to be able to proc, and since Cord can automatically proc 1, you can only proc off 1. I would advise a lot of you guys, if you just wanted pure damage, to go ahead and still focus with using Ryuji's. Yes, Leon's is great. We do love having that lovely amount of buffs that he gives off. But on the off chance that you end up using it, right, you are going to heal up your Ryuji all the way up. So it's not going to be very helpful for you. So I'd suggest you guys not do it. Now let's act like we're using Rebellion here on Dionysus, making our crit rate look absolutely fantastic. Then when it comes to Ryuji's amount here, he's going to go ahead and use this. Boom. Still dealing around 192k, and that was with an unoptimal type situation. Still, you would do it in that same little rotation area, making this a lot better. So that's another team you very well could use with the team rotations. Now the third team, I did swap around. Instead of Marion, we're going to be using a debuffer, which is going to be Vino, which I think is going to be a lot better for you guys. Getting into our third and final team, because I do know a lot of people like to use debuffers as well here, Vino is probably going to be your better one. Main reason for this is because she is really good at doing some single target debuffs, which will absolutely help out Ryuji. The only downside, once again, is going to be, of course, Ryuji is going to have a little bit of trouble with getting all his buffs, seeing that Leon himself will not be able to use his highlight early because he can very well heal. So what we would end up doing, let's say we want to get some damage on off, right? We'd use our skill 1 with Vino, making sure we're getting, of course, a lovely defense decrease, which is going to help us out a lot. Second turn, we'll go ahead and use Leon's ultimate booster, giving us that attack percentage that we do need and love so much. Then on this turn, we do the same thing as usual. If you feel like you're missing a little bit of attack, go ahead and use the attack, but usually you're going to be using Rebellion. Now, on the off chance that, of course, you are having Rebellion on Dionysus once again, you can go ahead and set this up in a way that you can use Terrakaja and then go to Dionysus and use Rebellion. But seeing we don't have that set up currently, we're going to go ahead and use our Rebellion first turn. This allows us to get our crit rate on up. Once again, we will use our skill 3, preparing to, of course, attack the one on the left hand side. And then on the right hand side, we're just going to prepare our damage in general. So let's go ahead and use this. We're going to use our skill 1. This gets up our attack percent once again. And then for our Leon, well, for actually our Vino here, we can do 2 things. We can either do the skill 3 to easily make this take even more damage, which is usually what you would do, or you hit something else. If this is a single boss, you're usually going to use the skill 3, and this is going to allow him to get even more damage bonus off on this mob here. So this round, we're going to go ahead and use our skill 2, making sure we get his HP down. Technically, you would still have your rebound effect. Then on this round, we would pop off this skill, making sure we're increasing his next skill damage, which is always what you want to go ahead and do here as well. Just this time, we didn't end up killing, which is kind of crazy, but we'll go ahead and pop off our evolution, acting like this is Rebellion, getting our passive on up, and then we see Ryuji do this lovely thing. Still hitting about 187k, which is absolutely amazing. And just for the funnies, let's go ahead and kill this one off as well. Boom. So Ryuji has several different teams that you can use, several different mix-ups, and there are still some that are out there that you can probably end up using depending on your situation. Those are the 3 teams I would really recommend, so obviously if you do want to follow those, they're not a bad choice, but there are more out there. Now with that out of the way here, let's go ahead and talk about the persona recommendations. Now when it comes down to Ryuji's personas, these are the ones that I would highly recommend for him, mainly seeing that they really do go hand in hand for him. Once again, Jikokuten is a very helpful persona that I think a lot of you guys do want to use, mainly because not only the fact he comes with freaking rebellion and Terracotta is easy to put on him, but also for the fact that the character himself helps you out with defense related stats, increasing your main attack percentage, and then whenever you are low that amount of HP, you are increasing your effectiveness. So this makes it as a really good attack percent, or at least a really good physical persona that you can end up using to really help out his attack percent overall. I think this persona is probably one of the better ones that you can go ahead and use, making it one of his best that you should probably look for. Now the next one that I do want to go ahead and recommend here is going to be Komokuten, but Komokuten is one of those few personas that I really haven't gotten up on his account, so I do have to find him real quick, and that's this guy right here. Reason that you really want him is also for his passive a little bit here, because he does help you out with the attack percentage and crit rate. This is going to help you out no matter what, so starting with this persona will be great for you, because on the option that you do start off as it, you get of course the bonus with the what's called the physical attack of the persona, or the physical rating of the persona. You're obviously increasing your attack percentage, and you're also increasing your crit rate. This is always going to help you out to get everything set up, and it's a 3-turn passive, meaning it will be there for everything that you end up doing. Plus, if you're using Komokuten, hey, you have a makeshift revolution right here, so there's a good crit rate little percentage that you can get off of this guy too, making him actually very useful for your whole team. Pretty much as another attack percent option that you can end up using if you don't want to use Jikokuten or Dominion, so obviously those are great. And that leads us to our next one that I feel like a lot of you guys are going to go for, which is also Dominion. Now Dominion on this account I do not have just yet, but he is insanely worth it. If we go ahead and check out the Persona Fusion here, we check out exactly what Dominion does do. He's obviously helping us out in the attack percent area. Just by getting this, he gives us the highest attack percent that we can get, and if we do spend a commandment, we also get a skill damage increase, helping out Ryuji all in all. Plus with this one, you don't really have to speed tune it crazy because it does come with Agility Master, so if you do have this on there, it's going to be very helpful for you. Only downside to this is you can't have it as your first persona, mainly because it is a blessed persona, so the dagger will be very iffy on this one. So if you do decide to use them, I'd probably put Komokuten or Jikokuten first, Dominion second, and then you could probably use Dionysus later down the line, or at least use Dionysus second, something like that. The only downside is it is a 2-turn little type attack here that you're using Ryuji, so it's going to be very hard to try and fit Dominion in here, especially if you're already using Komokuten or Jikokuten. So for our next one that I will lovely explain why you want to go ahead and get this persona, you already know. Dionysus, absolutely fantastic for crit rate. This is going to be perfect for anyone that you want to, with crit rate, crit damage off of this, which is obviously going to be great, and he does come with Revolution, which is always awesome. If you want to substitute for them, you could very well use Succubus, which Succubus is a very early persona. There's a bunch of early personas that can also give you these crits. I gotta find out where the heck Succubus is, but she usually is a very helpful persona as well, because if I'm right, she comes with Rebellion. So on the off chance that you don't have anyone else available for this, and I wish I could find her for you guys here, on the off chance that you don't have anyone else available, Succubus is always going to be a good one that you go ahead and go for, seeing that she technically does what Dionysus does, just as a little bit of a knockoff perception. But with that all out of the way here, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please do smash that like button on your forehead. I'm gonna try and get this together as fast as possible. Been slacking lately, been very busy, and I've also just wanted to take a break. So hope you guys have not actually held that against me, but I have a lot of things coming in the future. Till then, stay safe, stay sharp. Peace.